Foul Play here, and I'm back doing a set review now for Zendikar Rising. So for those of you that don't know, the final cards for this set just got spoiled earlier this morning. And now we're looking at the full 280 cards in the set. And, you know, I've looked through a few of them, and overall, I'm honestly quite disappointed with what they've done with the set. I think on the plus side, there's not as many broken things in this as what there was with like Uro, or what there was with what do you call it? Modern Horizons and things like that. I don't think there's going to be huge blanket bannings. I think maybe potentially we might see a Wilderness Reclamation Sage. Wilderness Reclamation getting banned in Modern. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So some of you might be asking, why am I disappointed? So the reason why I'm disappointed was, alright, so Zendikar Rising, land set, it's all focused on the land. We've known for a while that we were going to get lands that were a flip card, and you could choose whether or not it was a spell or whether or not it was a land. Great, fantastic concept, awesome, big fan of the idea. Why do I like the idea? I think, like a lot of people out there, that if you provide people with a card that can be a land or a creature, it will solve a lot of the inconsistencies that decks have. So, I'm namely talking about Mana Screw and Mana Flood. So that was my idea when I heard the announcement, and what I thought was going to happen was, great, we're going to have a way to improve consistencies for all decks across the format, and it's going to be a huge quality of life improvement for the set. So what we've been dished up instead are these monstrously expensive spells. So you've got 7 mana for Emery's Call, 7 mana for Seagate Restoration, 7 mana for Turn Timber Symbiosis, for red, Shatter Skull Smashing is a double red and X, and for black it is a triple black and X for Agadim's Awakening. So what's the issue with this, right? So we're not looking at a playable card as far as any of these decks are concerned. We're not looking at a card that can be played early or mid game. We're talking super late game is the only time anyone's going to get any use out of any of these cards. So what is the issue with this? So let's take a look at Turn Timber Symbiosis. So it reads, at a sorcery speed, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If that creature has converted mana cost of 3 or less, it enters with 3 additional 1/1 counters on it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, this card is not inherently broken or busted, in my opinion. Maybe someone will find something busted to do with it. But really, it's just going to be like mono green ramp that is able to utilize this at all, which is fine. I think them getting a tool is sort of okay, but any other green decks that aren't mono green ramp don't really get too much from it at all, really. Maybe Devoted Devastation as well. Now, Devoted Devastation is going to have a land on top of all their tutor effects. One of their lands will tutor as well, and I can see that being really strong for them once they have infinite mana. If they don't have a tutor card, cool. We'll just play Turn Timber Symbiosis and see what's on top of our library. Is it a combo piece? Isn't it? Who knows? But yeah, 7 cards, which is deeper than Dig Through Time as well. So as far as that card is concerned for Bogles, I do not think it is playable whatsoever. The only matchup where where I think it could be good is the Jund matchup. And we have a pretty good Jund matchup at the moment as it is with the ley lines and the Rest in Peace. Like, it interacts very significantly with them. And I've got a pretty good win rate against the deck at the moment. So the only other situation other than Jund, and let's face it, if you're getting like a 4/4 Bogle, 4/4 hexproof creature, that sounds pretty sweet. But it's not going to be bigger than their 5-6 or 6-7 Tamagoth, is it? So it's still not going to be able to attack. Maybe with an aura it will be able to. But do I think with Jund being pretty much the only deck it is relevant against, do I think it's worth it? No, not at all. Not even remotely close. The problem is the other matchups where we might want it would be like a control matchup. And if we're getting to the stage where we're tapping 7 mana to look for a creature, we've already lost. Let's be real. It's not even, like, this isn't even uncounterable. So they're just going to have a counter spell for it. If we're at 7 mana, they will have a counter spell for this in, like, probably 99.9% of games. Maybe 1 in 1,000 games against a control deck. It will be good for you, and it won't just be a liability. So I just don't think it's good enough. It doesn't cut it for me. All right. So, Shadowscale Smashing. Now, red card, obviously burn decks could have a very powerful spell or something here. So, by the way, with this turn Timber Symbiosis, I think all you needed to do to make it more balanced was just make it cost like 4 mana instead. And then make it only search for creatures with CMC of 3 or less. And then you probably don't even need the additional effect, or maybe you can have it, or maybe they get indestructible for a turn without any counters or something like that. Like, you just tune the power level right down and it would be fine. Absolutely fine, but unplayable. So what's Burn want to do? It wants to throw burn spells at people's faces. Cool. So they've got access to potentially, let's say it's like mono red burn or red white burn. They've got access to potentially 8 cycle lands, right? Which they can just pay a mana, cycle it, draw a card. So what's this one do? This one deals X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creatures and or planeswalkers. If X is 6 or more, it deals twice X damage divided as you choose among them instead. So if you tap 8 mana, you can potentially deal 16 damage. 12 damage. It's like, great. It's not going to anyone's face. What's the point? What burn deck is going to play this? People are saying Shadow's going to play this. Shadow's not going to play this. At like the CMC of double red X, like, no, if they could pay Phyrexian Life for this, sure, they'd probably play it. But no, absolutely not. They're not. They've already got all the best creature removal spells in their colors, and for planeswalkers, they've got Stubborn Denial to stop it before it even resolves. Maybe it's going to be nice to have an answer in the deck for a planeswalker. Maybe potentially one of or something. I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't see it. Maybe Death Shadow can utilize it. I don't see anyone else in Modern utilizing this card. Maybe in Standard it gets played, but I don't really care too much about Standard, so that's not what my video's on. So, Agadeem's Awakening. So, I looked at this card and I thought completely busted or completely unplayable. I think maybe in Legacy it might get some play, but like, honestly, it's going to be really, really expensive, because normally when people are reanimating from their graveyard, they're looking for like an expensive creature, and this works off CMC of the creature in the grave. So what it reads is, return from your graveyard to the battlefield any number of target creatures that have different converted mana cost of X or less. So that might not sound that great. Face value, don't really think anyone's going to utilize it. Maybe a zombie deck. But there is one deck that could utilize this very, very well, and that deck is Death Shadow. If they have a land that can deal 3 damage to them to come in untapped as a land, great. They like taking damage to ramp to their Death Shadow. Maybe it doesn't add a land into the graveyard for Delving for the Gurmag Angler, but that's not really that big of an issue, really. So yeah, I can definitely see Lurrus playing this, maybe even like Lurrus with Jund in the main deck, getting a lot of value out of it, because it reads, return any number of target creatures that have different CMC. So if you hypothetically spent 6 mana on this, you could return a Death Shadow, a Lurrus, and maybe a 2 CMC card. The problem with it being is Death Shadow doesn't have any good 2 CMC creatures. Some of them play the Jace that flips into the Planeswalker. But that's like a grindy card. That's not a good aggressive card, is it? Yeah, I just... Maybe Death Shadow play again. I just don't see it. So this is the big problem I have here. So all of these are super, super expensive. Now we come over to Emery's Call and Seagate Restoration. So Emery's Call. Create 2 4/4 White Angel Warrior creature tokens with fly. Non-angel creatures you control gain indestructible until your next turn. So that's not super disgustingly powerful by any stretch. Like 2 flying creatures for like 8 mana. For 7 mana, getting 2 flying creatures is like ahead of a hate bear curve. It's pretty powerful. In a vacuum, not that awful. But you know what decks get to, 7, 8 mana all the time? Blue-white control decks, or just control decks in general. So you're going to have blue-white control, Jeskai control, Woodless Reclamation control. They are going to be getting to these manas. Now the blue-white decks are going to have Teferi, and they're going to be able to quite easily do the plus ability on Teferi, so they can cast sorceries at instant speed until their next turn. And then in your end step, they're just going to gain some indestructible tokens. Or in your attack step, they're going to gain some indestructible tokens. At the cost of like 1 land slot. And I think it's pretty likely they can do it. They can even play it as a land, and then they can later on bounce it to their hand with Cryptic Command, and then go ahead and, cast this mode of it and go really, really hard at you. Same for the Woodless Reclamation. Maybe they're splashing white for Teferi, maybe they're not, but they've got Woodless Reclamation anyway, so they can just tap out in their own turn and then untap all their counter magic during your turn. So I think this was a big mistake, and I think Seagate Restoration was a big mistake, and I think we're going to see a banning of either Teferi or Woodless Reclamation as a result. I think both of these cards are way too powerful when you put it in the context of Modern. So Seagate Restoration, draw cards equal to number of cards in your hand +1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Again, Teferi plus, you can play this at instant speed. Imagine your opponent has a 7-card hand, casts this, I guess they go down to a 6-card hand. They get to then draw 7 cards. They are sitting on 13, they untap and have their 14th card for the turn. Like, who is beating a control deck with 14 cards once they've gotten to 7 or 8 mana? Like, it's just not going to happen. Maybe they just win more cards, and I'm like getting way too fixated here, but I really don't think that I am. I think I'm on the point here about controls just gotten given some very, very powerful lands, and everyone else has pretty much got shafted, with the exception of Green Ramp and maybe Death Shadow. And that Death Shadow is a big maybe. Like, these are sort of corner case scenarios for them. All right, so those lands. As for the other lands, I think most of them are really quite unplayable and bad because the land side has to come in tapped on all of them. So like here, Onto's Inversion, destroy all non-land permanents for 6 mana. Yeah, that's great. But like, you open it up, you look at it, and it comes into the battlefield tapped, and there's no way to make it not come into the battlefield tapped. The only exception, I think, and I think they've actually done a very, very good job with these lands, and I think they're going to be very handy in Pioneer for a lot of different decks. But yeah, these lands. So you've got a blue-red, white-black, a blue-black, a green-white, a red-white, a red-green. So you've got a lot of different color combinations there. And yeah, either side comes in untapped. Great idea, great concept. It's a different type of land we haven't had before. A little upset that they don't have land typings like Forest or Plains when they enter, even if it like cost you a life when they entered or something. But yeah, a little bit upset about that. But I think this gives Pioneer a lot more mana consistency having access to this land. Now the only problem is they don't have Totem Armor, and because all the blue control decks are running Supreme Verdict, we're still just hanging on for Totem Armor before it's even worth looking at Pioneer, in my opinion. Okay, so I just want to provide an example of like this red land. So I personally think if they just like tune down the power level of these entirely, it would be fine. I already went over this green one and how I thought they could tune that down. So for this red one, maybe the land, every time you tap it, it deals 2 damage to you. That's fine. And then maybe the other side of it is you can shock your opponent for 2 damage. And it doesn't have to be big, crazy, wild stuff. Maybe it can just be a 2 mana shock. Like, or like a 2 mana lightning bolt or something. Like, does that not just seem more reasonable to people? And yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's like a ruling where you can only have 1 copy of it in your deck as well. But I mean, that's not what they went for. That's what I sort of expected, was like a land that had like a gradual downside and then like was playable. But like these massive CMCs just, they don't do it for me, I'm sorry. So some decks have got some really awesome stuff. We have seen some sweet reprints, like we're getting a Lotus Cobra reprint, which is really sweet. And Landfall is becoming a trigger again with the set like it was last time. So yeah, really, really sweet card, Wayward Guide Beast. So 1 red mana, trample haste, and when it deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Why is this card good? There's landfall creatures like Steplinks that, you know, benefit and get +2/+2 every time a land enters. So, I mean, as Wayward Guide Beast, like, it's pretty obvious. It's just going to continue to fuel the fire. They can continue to thin their deck. And, you know, their creatures won't run out of fire-breathing effects, which I think is really sweet. I think it's a really cool design for a card. The downside's a pretty relevant downside. It's very similar to Goblin Guard in a lot of respects, but then also very different. Like, you're not going to play this on turn 1 and attack, because you're just going to be stuck on 1 land for the rest of the game. But this is more like a turn 2, turn 3, we want to get our lands happening. Seems great. I really like the card. I think it's a great card design. I think it's very specific to just one deck. Do I think that deck's going to be the best deck in the format because this card was printed? Absolutely not. It's way too susceptible to removal. Maybe they can play Spellskite and like Apostle's Blessing and shit to make it more resilient. But yeah, I love the card. I don't think it's broken at all. I think it's very good design. Here, Confounding Conundrum. Now, Nikachu's already done a video on this, and how ridiculous this card is. It's actually very, very ridiculous. So, it's a 2 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Great, it replaces itself. Like, control decks love cards that replace themselves. Omen of the Sea. Got a lot of play with Urian, right? Alright, so what's the problem with this card? When a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, that player had another land enter the battlefield this turn under their control, they return a land they control to its owner's hand. So what does this mean? So if you play a fetch land and crack it, one of your lands is going back to your hand. This is massive tempo interrupt. In Modern, where everyone's got, you know, probably like 2 to 4 color decks, almost always, 95% of people would be on 2 to 4 color decks. With some number of fetch lands, we're on 5. That's really bad. When you talk about land removal effects like Ghost Quarter and Field of Ruin, suddenly you're tempoing lands back to your opponent's hands. For free. That's absolutely bonkers. The next horrible thing with this is if they have 2 on the battlefield, the effect happens twice. And it's just so ridiculous. It's going to turn Ghost... If and when this card gets played, it's going to turn Ghost Quarter into Strip Mine. Because people aren't going to want to... Like, if they Ghost Quarter you on your own turn, people aren't going to want to have a land bounce to their hands. So they're just not going to enter. Or maybe they'll have the mana fixing and they'll let it bounce or something. But big problems with this card, especially because it stacks. Nikachu made a very good point as well. He said that... asymmetrical cards are not fair. If this read whenever any player's land enters the battlefield under their control, as opposed to your opponent's, why does it only affect one side of the field? Why do they not get affected by this at all? Like, what's the card Hate Bears plays? Leoden Arbiter. So you have to pay 2 mana to search your library. Affects both sides. Why doesn't this affect both sides? This is very bad. Very scary design. I think it's going to do some really disgusting stuff, and I think it's actually genuinely going to get banned. Blue-white hate bears will be played, and it will be abusing the misery of this out of this card as a 4-of. I guarantee you. If you play like 50 matches, you will verse a deck abusing this card post-release. Alright. Okay, so I open this land up. I don't think it's playable. I sort of like the design of it, though. So for 3 mana, you can return target card from your graveyard to your hand. That would be fine. Like, this is what I sort of expected. If this just entered untapped and could tap for colorless or tap for green and deal a damage to you, I think it would be perfectly playable. But because they've completely screwed that up, not playable at all. Alright, so here is a really sweet and really, really powerful card. So you guys remember Tamagoth, that really big, scary, annoying creature that gets massive and causes lots of issues? So now we've got Flying Tamagoth. So we've got Flying Death Touch and Lifelink on this Vampire Rogue, which is Nighthawk Scavenger. So its power and toughness are equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. I think this is going to get play in a lot of decks, and it might change sort of the consistency a little bit of what's going on. Mill might be, probably will be either main decking some number of these or sideboarding some number of them, because it has the potential to be as big as Jace's Phantasm, let's be real. Yeah, this is a very powerful card. It's going to see a lot of play. I don't think it's broken. At a CMC of 3, it doesn't die to Fatal Push unless Revolt is active, but then it has Death Touch, so it's sort of like... But it also has Evasiveness, so they probably aren't going to be able to block it. Really powerful card. I'm going to be looking at getting my hand on some of these. Really sweet design. Pretty cool artwork as well, especially the full art version there. Okay, so... Spirits. Spirits have got a really awesome tool here, and I think they've done a very good job of balancing this card. Skyclave Operation. So when it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent you don't control with converted mana cost of 4 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled owner creates an XX blue illusion token, where X is the converted mana cost of the exiled card. So they don't even get the exiled card back. They just get, you know, a blue illusion creature. Like, the blue illusion creature doesn't even have flying. This is great. Spirits is going to be fantastic here, because they're going to have Spell Queller countering anything that's going to, like, enter the board. And then they're going to have Skyclave Operation dealing with anything that's on the board and tempoing the absolute misery. And all their creatures have flying except Skyclave Operation. I think Spirits is going to be a real deck, like tier 1.5 at this point, after the set's release, because they haven't had a good tempo card, and this is a really good tempo card. The only downside to this is they've got a lot of 3 CMC creatures already, and this is another one. So their hands might be a bit clunky. They're still going to need to lean on Noble Hierarch as a creature and Ether Vials pretty heavily. Which means they're still going to need to be a 3-color deck to utilize this card effectively in Modern, in my opinion. In Pioneer, it might be very different, and it's probably going to be a really sweet deck in Pioneer now that this has been printed. Alright, so Thieving Skydiver, I think this is awesome. I think this is going to get a lot of play in Merfolk, because Stoneforge Mystic is a thing. So if you're in an Ether Vial matchup, you can kick this for 1, and you steal your opponent's Ether Vial. If you're in a Stoneblade matchup, you can steal their Batterskull for 4 mana. You can steal their Sword for 5 mana. Really powerful. Not broken, because you can't, like, pay that mana. Like, you can't put it into the battlefield with Ether Vial and pay that mana. But I think this card's definitely going to get some sideboard play. From Merfolk. I think it's really, really good. Very solid card. Good design. Merfolk have not had a lot of good cards printed in a very long time. This card's got evasiveness. It's got flying as well. 2-1. That's really powerful. I really like it. I'm excited to play it. Like, I really am. I think it's great. Alright. So the last deck that has gotten a lot of love is the Core Equip or Boros Hammer deck. I don't know if it has an official name yet, but they use the Sigarda's Aid to make equipments and enchantments enter at instant speed, or castable instant speed. And then when equipments enter, you can attach them to a creature you control. I'll just pull up the deck list. Alright, so I think I actually closed the tab, whatever. This is a generalized deck list of the deck. So Magnetic Theft attaches an equipment onto a creature. Steel Shaper's Gift is a 1-mana white spell. Searches your library for an equipment, puts it into your hand. Magnetic Theft, 1-mana red instant. Colossus Hammer, that's the card you see here. 10/10, creature loses flying. Only 1 mana to cast, 8 mana to equip. So obviously, you get your Colossus Hammer out, you equip it for free. Sigarda's Aid makes them equip for free once the artifact has an ETB. Shadow Spear, Lifelink Trample, and can make your opponent's creatures lose hexproof. So creature-wise, they have got Stoneforge Mystic, so that's another tutor card to help fund these Colossus Hammers. So between that and the Steel Shaper's Gift, they've got 8 tutor effects. For their 6 artifacts, they're going to have pretty good hit rates to finding them. They've got Core Duelist, which is a 1 white mana creature, which is a 1/1 and gets double strike when it's equipped. So the combo is Core Duelist turn 1, turn 2 they play Sigarda's Aid, Colossus Hammer, attack and kill you, or Colossus Hammer, Magnetic Theft, attack and kill you. Sweet deck gets access to powerful things like Giver of Runes to give their creatures protection from a color. I've seen versions play Spellskite before as well, which is pretty strong to protect your creature. Obviously, Stoneforge Mystic there. Swiftblade Vindicator is like red and white, so 2 mana, 1 red, 1 white. For I think it's a 1/1 Vigilance Haste Trample or something like that. So very powerful creature, obviously. Has the trample, help to push the damage over. Really sweet deck there. So, this creature that they've got here. So, I think it's a good quality of life improvement for the deck. And I think it's going to make it a real deck and maybe push it to tier 2, maybe tier 1.5 as a deck in Modern. Probably closer to tier 2 to be entirely honest with you. So they've got this card and the next card, which I'll be talking about. So, Akiri Fearless Voyager. So, it's 3 mana legendary creature. When you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, draw a card. Then it has an activated ability for 1 white mana. You may attach an equipment you control from a creature. You may unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature and it gains indestructible until end of turn. So it's good against board sweepers, Supreme Verdict. It draws cards. It's pretty strong. I don't think it's a 4 of. Maybe it's like a 2 of. Yeah, pretty solid if you ask me. Yep. And then this is the like creme de la creme. This is Nahiri, Heir of the Ancients. I think this card design is fantastic. It is only going to be playable in this deck as far as what I can see. But I think it is super powerful and for the deck and gives them a lot of reach. I don't think it's going to be a 4 of card because 4 mana is very expensive for the deck. I can very easily see it being 2, maybe even 3. So it comes in for 4 mana with 4 loyalty. So obviously pretty good. All 3 of its abilities it can utilize as soon as it enters. It can choose any one of the 3. There's no, like the ulti ability costs 3, neg 3. So it goes from 4 loyalty down to 1. They can use any of these abilities. Now, when you grade Planeswalkers, and I've talked to my friend Alex about this for a long time, with their playability and things like that, it's like, does it impact the battlefield? If you're behind, does it impact the battlefield in a way which is going to help win you the game? Another thing is, does it generate value? If you're on a stalled board state and you play this card, are you going to get value off of it? Then it's like how much mana it costs and its playability. Let's leave it there for the cool artwork. They've spent a long time on this alternate artwork as well. That looks so amazing. So for the +1 ability, create a 1/1 core creature token and you may attach an equipment you control onto it. So token generation, really powerful ability. A lot of Planeswalkers have had it in the past. Very powerful. With an uptick of you can put an equipment onto it. So your 1/1 token can all of a sudden become an 11/11 token with the Colossus Hammer. That's really strong. One of the ways the deck falters is if they kill the creature that it's equipped onto. They can't really equip it onto another creature well. Bam. Solved. Nahiri, your Planeswalker does that. What else does it do? Let's look down to the second ability. So look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a warrior or equipment from among them, put it into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay. Alright, so just looking into it real quick. So obviously this finds their equipments, which is really powerful. It doesn't actually find any of their relevant creatures that they normally play, just in red and white from what I can see. Warrior creature typing is not common among them. They're soldiers or humans or cores or clerics, and warrior's not there. Interestingly enough though, looking into it, there is a warrior creature that they can find with it, which is Glistener Elf. It's an elf warrior. So I wonder if that's going to get play. I don't know if I'd be running out to splash for it. I think maybe there's a different warrior you can find which more fits along the lines and the theme with the deck, in the colors of the deck. But obviously there's potential to find a warrior creature which could do things for the deck and be good. So you put that into your hand, so that's card advantage, right? There's your card advantage. So dealing with the board. So neg 3 deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to twice the number of equipments you control. So bam, deals with the board state, deals with planeswalkers, deals with creatures. You have 2 or 3 equipments on the field. That's 4 to 6 damage. That's pretty relevant. I think this card's very powerful. Not to the point of being like broken, but like really powerful. I only think it's utilizable in pretty much the Boros Hammer deck. And yeah, I love the card design. I think it's really good. Actually, no. Never mind. So the Akira Fierce Voyager, this is a warrior. So there is a warrior core which they can find with it. So yeah, that is... that's all the main cards I was looking at. I'm going to have just a quick glance, see if anything else pops out. Alright, so it appears I missed a few relevant cards. So Skyclave Pickaxe, when it enters, you can attach it under the battlefield you control, attach it to target creature you control. So if you have like the Step Links, I think it's called, the white landfall cat, turn 2 you play this, play another fetch land, and then play a land, get 2 triggers of 2/2, crack fetch, get another one, so you get 8 damage for turn 2, I think that's right, and you get extra landfall triggers for obviously the rest of the game. This attaching, the re-equip cost is pretty reasonable, that extra art is pretty nice. Yeah, so like I think that's pretty good, and the landfall deck will probably be utilizing this as well. Maybe not as a 4, I'm not entirely sure, but I can definitely see that getting play in the landfall deck. Alright, so looks like they did actually print a core warrior after I went on about not being able to find a creature. So this creature has double strike. Equipped warriors you control have double strike. So we've got a warrior core which you can find off the top of your library with Nahiri. That has double strike and can kill in 1 attack. So that's pretty sweet, pretty powerful. I like it. I can see this replacing some of the other cards in the deck. I'm not super familiar with the deck list. I don't think there's a streamlined or accepted deck list yet. When the set comes out, I'm going to be playtesting this and putting up a video on it, because I think it's a cool archetype. I like it, despite having lost to it doing stuff. So, Leyline Tyrant 4-mana dragon with flying is a 4/4 creature as well. So you do not lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. When it dies, you may pay any amount of red. When you do, it deals damage to that much damage to any target. Yeah, I think burn decks are going to play this. I honestly do. Either it attacks and kills your opponent, or like for 4 in the air each turn, or you just get a ridiculous amount of mana and potentially kill it yourself, and shoot them in the face. Actually, it's got a pretty sweet combo with that red land as well. This Shatterskull Smashing, so they can. Yeah, they can target their own creatures with it, so they can use Shatterskull Smashing to kill their own tyrant and shoot their opponent in the face for like 20 damage. That'd be a pretty cool pre-release thing. So yeah, as far as the set review is concerned, that's like me done with it. Those are all the cards that I have identified as being powerful and playable and good and all of that. So yeah. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my assessments. Are there any cards I missed? Things like that. I'd love to hear from you. Other than that, when the set comes out, I really enjoy doing pre-releases. I'm not very good at drafts and don't really enjoy them. I've never invested the time to be good at them. But if there's pre-release stuff on Magic Online, would people be interested in seeing me do like a sealed league or something? Because I love doing deck construction like that, and traditionally, like at my local game store, I've done like very well in pre-releases. I really enjoy the format. Yeah, it's always a lot of fun. So let me know if you want to see that sort of style of video down in the comments below. I'd love to find out, yeah, if that's the case or not. Yeah, that's going to be it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment, all of that. If you're new and you enjoyed the content, be sure to subscribe. I do daily Bogles content on this channel. And yeah, I think it's I think it's going to be a fun set. I think there's going to be some more broken stuff that's going to lead to banning. So thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time. Cheers.